I suck at jiu-jitsu. How do I suck less at jiu-jitsu?
I guess to suck less.
Ladies and gentlemen, the diabolical leader of the Headnod Squad,
Ron, it's great to have you back on the podcast.
Thanks, Josh. About a year since I was on last. It was great. Been black belt a year and a half now, learning all the time. I have some bad news. I'm still not on BJJ belt checker. However, there's a more
Is it because they were questioning your coach's credibility?
That could be. I haven't checked you either, but BJJ Belt Collector on Instagram, much more prestigious for the hobbyist. I've been featured on there many, many times. One of my favorite pages to go to. All the post-training, belt tied up, all shredded, or the promotion where you got the shredded belt next to the brand new crisp one. It's super motivating. So I recommend that to your listeners to go check them out. It's a lot of fun.
How come you're better at Instagram than I am?
That's a good question, Josh. You might need to spend a little bit more time with it. It's all about the thought process behind the post.
So you're just saying I just don't think deeply enough?
Maybe you need to think deeper.
Okay. I could see that. Do you think... I thought a good place to start.
Hey, before we start, I got something for you.
Okay.
It's actually for your son. It's a shark book. And he's getting on the mat a little bit now, almost a year old. It's probably time to start teaching him about apex predators.
I like that.
So,
shark's teeth to tail.
Yes, that's right. He's mostly going to be wanting to focus on the bite of the shark, especially the teeth, so he can be vicious as he grows up.
Let me ask you this. Smithsonian Kids, this isn't some type of propaganda, right? They're going to mention the Megalodon, correct?
I'm sure. I didn't get to pre-read it. I saved that for the parents. Maybe Emily would like to proof it before you give it to him. But
if they try to tell my son that the whale shark is the biggest shark in the ocean currently,
that'd be a problem. You have to rip that page out.
I don't buy it, man. I don't know. While we're on the topic too, Bryce also has a hot mic for us today. So Bryce, on the Megalodon, while we can bring you in, you know the Megalodon? Are you aware?
Yeah, I know about the Megalodon.
What are your feelings towards, I'm not going to ask about Sasquatch, anything like that, but what are your feelings towards Megalodons? What do you think about, do you assume that they're totally extinct?
No, I think Megalodons are still out there. Why would they not be?
That's what I'm saying. And a lot of people are like, oh, Josh is just being an idiot. Josh is always just being an idiot. There's no way that he has some belief that Megalodons are still out there. But they have teeth that are supposedly like 10,000 years old. And the Megalodon wasn't supposed to be around 10,000 years ago. What's going on? It feels like maybe Smithsonian Kids propaganda. And so I just don't know. I'm going to have to do some research on this before I
make some edits before your son gets a hold of the book.
Before I let Matthew read the shark's teeth to tail. So to get started on jiu-jitsu, and last time we went through your story, we really let everybody know the soft side of Bionic Rob that we all know and love. But then there's this other side of Bionic Rob that I really know and love. And I thought I wanted to just get him going a little bit today. And I don't know, bring a villain on the podcast for once.
Am I going to have to go into witness protection after this, Josh?
I could see it happening. We are going to probably insult some groups of people that are even better at Instagram than we are.
Oh, that's not good.
But I just thought a good place to start would be, you started training how long ago?
It's almost 18 years now, I think.
So 18 years ago, so that's 2006?
2006, 2007, something like that.
Yeah. And so in that time, I started in 2008. In that time, the transition from white to blue belt has become very different. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. When I was coming up, if you were a Phenom, you might get your blue belt in 2 years. Most people were probably 4 to 5. And when I talk about Phenom, we're talking about like the likes of BJ Penn, some of the guys that are getting it super fast. Giselle Bundchen is actually one that's getting super fast. I think she's a purple belt now after just a couple years of training. But yeah, huge difference. But as far as skill level goes, I'd have to say it's probably pretty equal now.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me about it. Tell me your opinion on that. Because, okay, so people nowadays, the argument against that like the blue belt level was different is like, oh, well, look at all of these new techniques that are done in jiu-jitsu. People wouldn't have known how to defend those specific techniques back then.
Some of that stuff is just positioning and like kind of knowing where you are, which comes with mat time. So maybe there's going to be an instance where the person that has the more mat time that's been longer would have maybe some advantage with that. However, also at that time, classes were not every day, twice a day, or some gyms even 3 times a day. The level was mostly blue belt and under. Maybe like when I started, the professor was a brown belt. There was maybe 1 or 2 purple belts, and then maybe a dozen blue belts, if that.
Maybe, right?
Yeah. So
you were lucky if you had that environment.
And we drilled a lot of the, your basic fundamental stuff, close guard, cross collars, arm bars. We did a lot of warm-ups too. I was pretty good at them at the time. Now, I hate the warm-ups. I went to visit a gym not that long ago when I was on the East Coast, and they did the warm-ups. And this guy was just burning me on the run. Man, your time is coming. You better save something for the end. If you duck out on me right now, I want you to remember this time where you're winning, because coming up, I'm bringing that arm home back to the Midwest. So we drilled arm bars, and I gave it to him really good.
And you did. You brought the arm back to me.
Yes. That was what the technique was. It was great. I picked up some awesome details, came back super excited, was able to put in a couple things that I've already been really good at with the arm bars, and then that setup just worked really great for me. And then when we went to spar live, we did some positional sparring, and every single one of them, I just ripped the arm off, and like immediately, like there was no coming back. And the one that passed me on the warm-ups, he got a little extra. So note to all those warm-up champions out there. Be ready.
They're different. They're different than the rounds.
That is different than the rounds. Yes.
Yeah, I think that when you look at the white to blue belt, and I agree that like the amount of time that people had the ability to dedicate to jiu-jitsu was different. So a lot of the phenoms that we talked about, they just trained every day, right? And it was like those guys would get to blue belt level, and I always look at like, okay, we look at what is the best jiu-jitsu, and it's generally what works best in a specific competition, whatever the hot competition is at that time or the hot rule set is at that time. But the difference is, I think you lose a lot of matches as a competitor, and a lot of competitors would agree, where you would be like, man, I really do feel like I was just better at jiu-jitsu than this person, but they were either better at the strategy, the pacing, the timing, or they were better at the 1 or 2 positions that we actually were in the whole 5-minute round. And so it doesn't always necessarily mean, oh, this makes this person the better jiu-jitsu person. And I would always argue that if you really wanted to compare side by side the best jiu-jitsu person, I really think that the best way to do it would be to have certain positions that you're going to start from and do jiu-jitsu from that position, right? You see in like wrestling, they have the referee's position that they start from, and it just changes it from just being on the feet and just being the same fight, and then it just being this meta of who creates the best game at winning this one really important fight for this rule set. But if we take away the takedown points, or if we take away the passing points, if we take away the points in general, if we take away the time, it changes everything for people. And so I really feel like the best way to actually compare would be to positional spar. And if you looked at the modern blue belt from today, and obviously it's even harder criteria for the people from today, because even though there are some really amazing blue belts that can beat black belts, the standard is lowered to what blue belt is, because there's just way more volume of people doing jiu-jitsu. And so I think when you're looking at like, okay, if we put them side by side and made them positional spar though, and just the average versus the average, the top versus the top, and the lowest versus the low, I think like in dominant position, to me, no doubt, almost from every school, old school guys would win. From open guard, new school guys would probably win most of those because that's most of the focus in jiu-jitsu now. But like when it comes to actually holding somebody down and actually submitting somebody from a good spot where you couldn't get hit from if you wanted to, if they wanted to, or it wouldn't do much damage anyway. And so that's just kind of as somebody who is still, because I'm Asian, people look and they're like, oh, this guy's from the TikTok generation. But I'm like, no, guys, I swear I've been doing this sport longer, doing this art longer than most of you guys. And, I've gotten to kind of see and be in both spaces a lot. And that's my assumption of like being a guy who was was a very good blue belt at that time. I always joke with my students, you would never beat 17-year-old Josh. My blue belts. Like
blue belt Josh.
Yeah, you would never beat blue belt Josh. He was just tougher than you. I mean, like, you probably would even have better jiu-jitsu, but he's just tougher than you. You just couldn't beat him.
Yeah, sometimes when the cameras are off and you just are rolling for rolling's sake, you can use that as a perspective for yourself to kind of judge where you are with stuff. So, I mean, that happened to me a bunch of times with people that way, way better than me, but when it didn't matter and it didn't count and you're just using your technique, and you can really kind of see like, okay, yeah, I'm getting somewhere.
Mm-hmm. And that's the weird thing about jiu-jitsu being an art and a sport is you don't end up with this defined, this is what jiu-jitsu even is. And then if you don't have that, what is good jiu-jitsu? What is great jiu-jitsu? What is exceptional jiu-jitsu? And it's very hard to define because jiu-jitsu you have to do by feel, regardless of its sport, regardless of its art. You have to feel it for it to matter to you, to be relevant to you,
it, yeah.
And so for us, it's like the only way to really know most of the time is be like, oh, well, I rolled with this guy and he said that guy killed him. And so he would kill me too, And so a
lot of that is style too. Coming up, I had some training partners. I was usually one of the smaller guys, and there was a guy, he was like built perfect for jiu-jitsu. He was like 220, 6 foot something, super strong. I think he played soccer, football. His dad was a professional athlete or whatever. And then there was another guy that was just kind of like a regular Midwesterner guy, a little bit bigger than me. And I'd have great rounds with him, and then I would get destroyed by the other guy. But then when those two would roll, they'd have like close rounds. And I was just like, I could never really figure it out. Like, what's going on? How come I can't like maybe break even here from time to time? But yeah, it's just style, body types. It all plays into it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
It's kind of the fun
Unless
part
you're
of
the big guy.
And it's the fun part of jiu-jitsu too. It's the like we always joke about it I've been joking about it more recently since Ron came on the podcast. But like watching Ron beat up big tough guys is my favorite thing, right? And it's like that's only possible because big, strong guys typically have an advantage, and he has really smooth jiu-jitsu. And it's like that to me, that the ability to overcome it is why I appreciate that. Like, hey, a lot of these athletes that I will compete against probably forever are on steroids, and I'm not going to do them. And it's like this simple, like, well, it's fun that I believe that jiu-jitsu is going to overcome that,
That's what the foundations are. That's what it's started out to be. Yeah, I'm sorry that you have to face that, but I think you'll see that those guys will fade, and you'll come back, especially as you advance into your Masters Plus division.
Especially when at like 34, I just get on all the gear.
Oh, you're gonna gear
and
up.
Then and then like it's a super duper power for me.
Sure. I get the opposite. There's a couple guys at my gym that are older that are working out, and one guy's using a private personal trainer online. He has meetings with him all the time. When he first started with him, there's no real estate left on the leg press machine, right? He's a tiny guy. I'm like, man, what's going on? He must have the real deal here for trainers. And then I come to find out that he's sauced up. He's on the Bomba. And then after talking to him a couple years later, he was really struggling. And I think he kind of peaked out is what happened and never really got any stronger. And now I never see him at the gym. So.
Yeah, that really is, not that I'm giving warnings to people. If you want to be on, do what you want to do.
Yeah,
but
I think
it does level out for a lot of people that I see. I don't know the science behind it, but I just know a lot of people that get on and like, oh my gosh, the improvement is superhuman for a period. And then it's like for most guys, whether they don't know how to cycle, whether they don't, I don't know what the situation is, but it just seems to like they eventually get back to pretty close to where they used to be, at least in jiu-jitsu physically. I don't know about how they look and all those other things, but just how people feel in jiu-jitsu, kind of back to what we were saying, is like I've rolled with a lot of different guys, and to a point that I can almost tell sometimes, like, wait a second, this guy, he got so much better overnight. Like, what just happened? And I'm always cool with people too. So people be like, oh yeah, I got on this or that. Sure. And so I always just pay attention and see like, oh, okay, I wonder how this is going to go long-term. And like at the 2-3 year mark, it just starts to be a decline again. And, I've noticed that over and over. And so like, even though you tell me all the time that I need to be on steroids to compete with these guys, so I can beat the Brazilians, as you say, so I can cook Brazilian barbecue
the Brazilians,
as you always say, which is very harsh on the ears. You shouldn't say that. And I'm like, no, Rob, I don't want to do steroids. I think it's gonna pay off.
You're gonna be all right.
Yeah. So, Bryce, let me ask you something. Did you have any hot takes for Rob? I thought you told me you had something.
Yeah, going back to like the talk of like old school and new school, I wanted to know what makes you mad about new school guys coming in our gym. And I have a perfect example is one of our new white belts, Sam. I mean, these guys are coming up watching CJI and stuff. Watching these crazy, exciting matches. There's not a lot of traditional jiu-jitsu. I mean, there is, but there's some new stuff going on, right? Sam walks in and he's saying, hey, we're doing closed guard tonight. Screw that. I don't like closed guard. Jeff, come here and teach me some crazy
footlock
inversion in the donkey guard or something. Like, what? Tell me what grinds your gears.
Oh, that's bad. Those guys in old days would be wrapped up pretty tight and put out back. So, yeah, that's a lot of disrespect. We have to blame Josh for running that kind of gym. Those guys, recently, I had to come to Josh's honor and defend the belts in general. These guys are set up like the Wild Boys from MTV days, bare-chested, gi pants with I believe Jeff had Josh's black belt tied around his neck, Karate Kid style. No, around his forehead.
It was around his forehead.
Karate Kid style. I'm like, man, this guy's about to get some beautiful ringworm. And then Sam, who doesn't, I don't even think he wears a belt to come to train, which he should probably tidy up and at least wear his belt to training. Be important. I think he grabs the purple belt, and then for some reason, it's super funny. This might be you and your brother, Bryce, that decided like 2-on-1 and Josh was like a good idea to like. So those two guys decide that Josh is already training hard. He's kind of beat down. They decide, okay, now's our time. So they, remember they're still in their warrior garb here. They decide to bum rush Josh. And
there was 1 second that I did go full. I was in jiu-jitsu mode,
Sure.
And I could tell, they're TikTok generation kids. They're always dancing at Walmart. Oh. They're always doing something ignorant. So you can just have this feeling of like, I haven't been asked a stupid question in a minute. They're up to something. What's going on? And so I'm a little prepared. And what I feel is like I'm on all fours. I think I just finished a round. And I feel like Jeff getting really close, and I can just see like, okay, these guys are about to both jump on me.
So
they're dressed as if they're about to stage a coup, and I go from on my butt to low single on Jeff. Kid couldn't wrestle if his life depended on it. Of course he can't. TikTok generation, right? And so from there, I stand up while I still have his foot so he can't get up. And Sam kind of tries to, like, worst move you could try, like jump on my back while my hand is kind of tucked. And so I just kind of catch him and I throw him at Jeff in a way that I was like, oof. That was kind of hard. I could have, those guys are going to be sore. But then me and you proceeded to go
so stage left. I'm
it was
about to leave, but
it was very much like John Cena running back into the ring. Like he had a match earlier that night and they're like, oh man, who's going to help The Rock? And then all of a sudden John Cena runs out with a chair and starts smashing dudes.
Yeah,
then it goes longer than you would expect.
That's right. So not only is it not good for the professor to have that kind of disrespect, but the belt disrespect was mostly that got me. So we made sure that they tapped it really tight, really couple times as that belt was wrapped around their neck.
Yeah,
they both tapped twice.
The attacking somebody while wrapping a belt pretty much around your neck is such a Jeff move. As if, like, you know what? Like, a dog would be easier to fight against if he didn't have a leash, right? Yeah. But Jeff's like, no, I'm going to put, like, this rope around my neck, and then it'd be funny.
Good thing everybody has signed the waiver.
Yeah, that's man. Anybody born, and I know that I'm not going to offend anybody with this statement because nobody born after the year 2000 listens to podcasts. But anybody born, maybe it's not even the year 2000. Maybe it's just anybody born after 9/11. Trash person, dude. I haven't met one person that is, what is that, 22 or under? Yeah, 22 or under that this year, honestly, meet a 22-year-old in 2024. If you can find one that you like, that is fun enough to be around, and you say like, hey, when were you born? Like, oh, before September 11th. Like, oh, okay. That's the only chance.
That's the only chance.
Oh. I mean, what are we going to do to whip these guys back in shape, Rob? How are we going to get them to start drilling again?
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a long road for those guys. I think they've been indoctrinated. There might not be any coming back, but
it's the next generation you worry about.
Yeah.
Rob, that's why I gave you.
Maybe Sam will get his blue belt and he'll fade away.
That's a good call. That's a good call.
Jeff is pretty invested in jiu-jitsu. He might not have any other choices at this time. He might have to roll with it.
Yeah, who knows, man? I don't know. He could definitely, go to prison one day or something. Yeah. I don't know. Like he could definitely.
When he was coming up, I was like, Jeff, you got an opportunity here. You're coming under Josh's wing. You can really learn, focus on jiu-jitsu and really learn the stuff. And you're already great at heel hook and everybody. Like maybe you can get that great at passing guard and being a man. You open up your own gym up north where there's really a need for jiu-jitsu, and you come up under Josh's instruction, kind of learn the ropes. And he seems receptive to it for about 5 seconds, and then he goes about his normal way.
Yeah. Man, that's what I'm telling you. Kids, dude.
Yeah.
It's I don't know about them.
Yeah. Is there a future for the Jiu-Jitsu Bum, Josh?
Is there a future for the Jiu-Jitsu Bum? I think if he builds an audience of some sort to eventually give some type of benefit to that audience, whether meaning you are just a friendly person in your gym and a friendly person in your community, and you open a jiu-jitsu school one day, right? And that would be your audience, and you having a way to kind of monetize your love for jiu-jitsu, your dedication to jiu-jitsu, because that's the biggest thing. Is a lot of people love jiu-jitsu, but no one cares to learn from somebody who hasn't dedicated enough time to it. And so you could do that. You could also use it with something else you're already good at, like photography, or at least we thought Bryce was going to be good at producing, no, I'm just joking. But producing, right? Doing video. Bryce went to school for video, and it was when we started to talk about that stuff, and like I would ask him for all kinds of free advice. And
I remember that when I first met Bryce, and he was telling me about, he just finished school. I'm like, hey, what'd you go to school for? And he told me, I'm like, have you talked to Josh lately? And I knew what you were getting started with. So it's good that it worked out. And Bryce is executive producer of the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show.
And it really started too. Like it was always something that he would kind of help with. And then when we did, it was Chicago, right, Bryce? That really, it was like, yeah, Bryce, every interview since then, maybe besides one or two you've produced.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was Chicago. We did the Chicago takeover with Chris Wojcik, Mahmoud, and Mark Vives and Jeff Serafin.
Yeah, that was a good. So we did those 4 podcasts in a 24-hour period. But during that 24-hour period, we trained at what everyone was telling us was like going to be 2 of the hardest training sessions in Chicago. We did Tuesday night at New Breed. And it was brutal, and they sent the welcoming committee. Ooh. They did. It was so brutal that I feel like afterwards, throughout the week, everybody, not just us, was beat up from that training because we trained there the whole week. But then the next morning we woke up, so we did like Mark Vives interview, went and trained at his gym. Mark made us stay out way too late at dinner, and then woke up at like 6. Did the 7 a.m. session at Serafin's. It was also brutal. And it was a smaller group, but it was just as terrible. And we then got back and then did 3 interviews in a row. And yeah, we were scorched. Definitely abused the body and the mind. Definitely abused everything that week.
Do you like going to travel and train in different schools? Is that something you enjoy, or do you kind of feel put on the spot when you go, since you have the podcast and some notoriety from competitions now?
If it was something that I could do more, I would definitely do it. Like if I was ever I always see people do camps where they'll be in a different city for a week and they're teaching the classes and then obviously training too. But it's not a one-time seminar. I just feel like, one, I love doing seminars, and so I try to make them in a way that I feel like, hey, we only have 2 hours. Let's do something that will hopefully, if you keep focusing on it, it will affect your jiu-jitsu for a very long time and affect it as bigly as possible, if you will. And so I will say, like, then I'll go into but you even getting to train one session with everybody is nowhere near as fun as getting to train like for a whole week at a gym. Because one of my favorite parts of training is trying to have strategy of like going with people. And maybe if I go with a guy and I can't pass his half guard on the first night, or I can't pass a certain position on the first night, maybe I'll go into the next night and I'll be like, oh, I can't wait to go with this guy, because all I'm going to do is not let him get to that position. And then I'm going to try to pass any other guard he'll play and see where I'm at from there. And like getting to do that a couple nights in a row, I feel like almost flexes that muscle, right? And then you still going to a different place is, for me at least, because of the little bit added pressure of like, hey, people might be trying to beat you up a little more. It gives me that nervousness a little bit of like competition. And for me anymore, getting that nervousness consistently when I can, and then beating it and still doing jiu-jitsu anyway, is like this habit I always try to be in. And, I just, so there's so much benefit. I wish I could do it more. But
sure. I love it. Whenever I go somewhere, I always pack my gi first, like I said the last time on the podcast. And I learn another dimension now that I'm teaching class. So even if there's a technique that I know, the way that they describe something, or maybe the way that they drill it, I can bring it back. And that's really so important for people to get out to other schools and bring stuff back. And then, like you mentioned with the camp situation, there's a few times where we had seminars coming up where the instructor would stay for a couple days, and they'd pop, or maybe they'd be early, or their flight was delayed, or they missed their flight or something like that. They'd stay and they would just do a random extra class or whatever, and those were like the bonus sessions, if you will, and you learn so much. Like you get to roll with them, and then they show you like the stuff that they forgot to mention, or like some other stuff that they do that maybe works really well for you. And there's just so much more to be gained from those situations like that.
Who is your favorite person not from Head Nod? Favorite round you've ever gotten to do, or favorite person you've ever gotten to train with? Even if you've gotten to train with them multiple times.
Sure.
Bryce, think on it. I'm asking you the same thing.
You said favorite round ever?
Yeah, favorite person that you've gotten to.
I had
show
so
with.
many
or
great-
compete against even, but
Great training partners coming up that were like really consistent. Josh Dawson coming up. We were both blue belts at the time, about the same size, same age. It was a great training partner. We weren't like hammering each other all the time, but we, one step above. And then as far as like celebrities go, a lot of top guys came through at the time. They didn't always roll. I mean, like the Lovatos and Robert Drysdale came through, but they didn't roll with anybody. Not that I would want to do that with these guys. But Hobson Moore came through once when I was maybe just a couple months into jiu-jitsu, and I was not ready for what he could teach. Like, he was already a 6-time world champion or something crazy like that, small guy, and just he went through the room next, and just took everybody out. Like, people had no idea what was going on with him. Jeff Glover came a couple times.
I would love to roll with Jeff Glover.
He's next level at the time. He will do stuff like completely opposite, and are like, how did he just do that? Andrew Ebers is another one that's he's been on. He's another one that's like, how did he just get his hook over? Just crazy stuff that some people are able to do. Dustin, he's another one, but man, you don't want to take him off because you would probably end your life.
Yeah. We had some good
tough.
Dustin stories when Devin was on the podcast last time.
I got the fun Dustin when he came. He was happy to be there, teach an hour-long seminar, and put a couple people out, and show us some good techniques, which is something that not too many people really took advantage of. He had great jiu-jitsu, very classic style. King of the Triangle, Omoplata, of course, but a lot of people would be like, he showed that the last time. I don't need to go to this seminar. But the guy has taken out the who's who of jiu-jitsu. Like, you could look up Dustin versus Jeff Monson. And at the time, Jeff Monson was like one of the toughest dudes on the planet. And he's rolling a triangle clinic on Jeff Monson. There's a video of him just going crazy. Like, even now, training for 17, 18 years, he's got way more to show me about the triangle than I know. So that's something that people need to keep in mind when they're deciding whether or not that they can go to a seminar or not. Because there's a lot of people that were like, I don't vibe him, or he's just not going to show me something new. Not gonna waste the time with it. But even the basic techniques, these guys that are super phenomenal at it, they're just going to give you just that little bit extra every time.
I think it's my problem with the technique idea that we have in jiu-jitsu. It's when you go to a seminar, and even how an instructor is always going to break it down in his mind is, I'm going to teach these 6 techniques. I'm going to teach these 10 techniques. But like you said, it's like, okay, these techniques, they're this slowed down slice of jiu-jitsu that's going to be happening, and it needs to happen consistently this way. And then if this doesn't happen, then you do this. And if this doesn't happen, you do this. If this doesn't happen, you do that. And the problem is, when you talk about somebody who has something as simple as a triangle choke that can beat the best guys in the world and can finish the best guys in the world, they can't escape from, he can set it up, he can hit it. There are 100 techniques, 1,000 techniques that guy probably does from the triangle. Like little movements, and it's different every time. And if you watch on video, his hand's here sometimes it's here, sometimes it's underneath. And ideally you look for the biggest things. That's going to be the most helpful. But to your point, when you go to the class, it's the question environment tends to be different. And he shows the triangle, and somebody says, well, what if the guy drives the knee to the floor? And he goes, I just put my hand under. And you answer that question, and then everybody knows, like, that's how you do it. Is that a technique? Is that a detail? What is that? No, he's trying to get out of the triangle. This is how I stop him from getting out of the triangle that way. He might try to go this way. Only a couple ways he can go. I'll stop him this way. Then he might do something different. But if you really get with somebody who understands something deeply, it's actually hard to get them to explain it to you because you understand it so little that you don't even know the right questions to ask. Right?
Sure, and that's back when we were old school jiu-jitsu, like you guys brought up, where it was mostly white belts and blue belts coming up. So like we knew absolutely zero jiu-jitsu really compared to someone that's already been to Brazil, lived, trained, been a black belt for a long time, toughest training partners in the world. So yeah, we were just getting our first bite, if you will, of what those techniques were from him.
Yeah, I think that just kind of as I teach jiu-jitsu more, it really has just become more about what can help you, I don't know, what can help you consistently accomplish the task. We kind of talked about CJI and, how that's what people are seeing, right? And that's what jiu-jitsu is going to be as a sport, because that's where money is at. That's where popularity is at.
And
it was
Larange is a key member.
And exactly. So what Renato Larange is going to touch is going to turn to gold. And so it's like he's 27-time world champion, bro.
Absolutely. He didn't even have the Ghee on the other day. That's
what I'm saying. And so it is that part of jiu-jitsu is going to be unstoppable. It's going to grow. It's going to be in people's face. And it, to me, I love Ghee Jiu-Jitsu. I love IBJJF tournaments. But that was more fun to watch for me than anything.
That's super exciting.
But here was my critique. And keep in mind, I'm currently a competitor. I'm not just a coach critiquing this. So I'm not saying that I'm better than anybody or something like that. But my critique was there wasn't a single athlete that I saw compete for the most amount of money that's ever been in our sport, maybe besides Levi Jones-Leary. And that's just maybe, but like there wasn't a single one that I saw that didn't look vulnerable at a point, right? If you watch Cade in the Andrew Tackett match, there was vulnerability for both guys because of how they were doing jiu-jitsu. Sure. And this is just totally my opinion on jiu-jitsu, but if you want to consistently accomplish the tasks, limiting the amount of vulnerability you have is one of the most important things for consistently accomplishing the task.
Sure.
And I just, I'm not seeing that as much in this next wave of how jiu-jitsu is being done. And people are getting very good quickly because they're not worrying as much about the vulnerability. A lot of times they're filling that with athleticism. They're stopping those things with being good athletes. But that is I always think that in almost any genre of music, in any art, in anything that you will see when you hear interviews from people in the 80s and the 70s, and they're talking about oh, you were so innovative. You did all these things innovative. Most of it was just it was just because everybody was doing this one thing. The money was there. Everything was there. And everybody goes, oh, well, now we need to switch our focus to that. And then I just wanted to do what I wanted to do. I wanted to do what I believed was most fun and my best art. And those people a lot of times were able, obviously there's a lot of people that probably did that same thing that, were living on the streets. But those people, they kind of just had that same hey, just because everybody does it and this is what the quote unquote meta is right now, it doesn't mean that this is what jiu-jitsu actually is. And you can stay true to jiu-jitsu and still compete at any level and in anything and use your jiu-jitsu strategically for that rule set. But just because it's what's on video and you're told this is the highest level of this sport, it doesn't have to be that,
Sure, and that's very individualized, especially for those guys. But I think you have to kind of remember, you're not going to go from 0 to CJI. You kind of need to start and build your base through the fundamental curriculum, or starting from just like the Rotolo brothers. They started when they were very, very young. I'm sure they were crazy athletic even at that age, but they drilled and started and advanced, and now they're able to make their jiu-jitsu their own, and they know what their bodies can do. They can kind of see what's coming their way, what's not coming their way, what's available, what might be available. So it's really about making the jiu-jitsu your own, but you can't just get there. Like when I started learning judo, I was like, oh, I'm going to take 4 lessons and I'm going to be a monster. I'm going to be bombing everybody. But that's not how it works. You have to start from the bottom, grind your way up, and then you finally will get to a point where you can kind of make it to your own and fit it into how you want to play your jiu-jitsu game. And that's where those guys are at. They've got decades of experience, world champions, all of them. Like, those matches were so close. You could argue, depending on the rule set, on how you look at it, you could argue, either way for that. But yeah, absolutely, the most high stakes matches that have ever been in jiu-jitsu. A lot of people saying some of the best matches ever. I don't know. I kind of think if you are going to say that, you better have like 3 or 4 other matches that you're going to compare it to.
What do you got? Best match ever? I no doubt. I never even have to think about it when somebody asks me. But what do you guys got? Best match ever?
So can I say something real quick?
Say what you need to say, Bryce.
So I was at CJI, and after the Andrew Tackett and Cade Ruotolo match happened, I posted on my story, like, most exciting match in grappling history. All right, Rob, back to the hot takes. First person in my inbox was Bionic Rob saying, have you seen Eddie Bravo fight, which Gracie was it?
Hoyler.
Sure.
That's it. Man, that was one of the biggest upsets.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but I guess tell us why that was more.
So
exciting.
that's yours?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Upset. Probably the first one to ever really get a lot of media attention, and people are still talking about it today. What was that, like 25 years ago? Now, I think the best match is probably got to be Gary versus Kron.
That's
technical
at ADCC trials. Is that right? Or was that at ADCC?
That was at ADCC.
Okay.
And then
that was
you got
excellent
classic Ghee matches: Hodger versus Buchecha,
That, to me,
Hodger versus Jacare, where he breaks his arm and he stucks his. This is a brown belt world championship. He breaks his arm, he stuffs his arm into his belt, and continues to finish out the fight to win the championship.
That's insane.
I know that this could be a hot take for some people, but there is nothing that compares to Roger Gracie being retired from jiu-jitsu, Buchecha being on top of the world, multiple world title. And the first match they have is Nogi Metamoris, and it really looked like Buchecha won, but it was just submission only. If there's no submission, it was a draw. And so the match goes down as a draw. Years later, Roger accepts the match with Buchecha, the original GOAT, with the person that people are saying is the GOAT now. And he not only wins, but he wins so decisively, and he wins correcting certain things that had happened in the match before, like the tornado sweep position. And if you watch his hand fight in that position, he holds a cross sleeve grip that is like perfect, that keeps Buchecha from being able to elevate on the tornado, that he didn't do. Obviously, it was Nogi, but he didn't do in the match before, and ends up taking the back off of that transition and getting the finish. And I saw somebody post this, and this is, to me, it lives rent-free in my head. Said something like, imagine if Michael Jordan came back for one game and dunked on LeBron and settled every argument at this age. And obviously the age was different. Sure. But imagine that. He goes, that's what just happened in jiu-jitsu today. And yeah, that is, to me, greatest moment in jiu-jitsu history. Come on, man. Roger Gracie coming back. Are you serious?
Is that the greatest moment ever, though? Or is that the greatest match, most exciting match?
With the excitement, with what was on the line, the legacy that was on the line, with with how the match played out, I mean, the match was incredibly exciting. It was on the feet. It was very like, what's going to happen? And then Hodger pulled, swept. The transition was just like, it was as if you were watching him do it to everybody else you've ever seen him do it to, but he was finally doing it to Buchecha. And it was the most Hodger Gracie jiu-jitsu match that there is. But if you're into that sort of thing, like I am myself, best jiu-jitsu match, most exciting. He came back from the dead and beat this dude. You know, when's the last time that Lex Friedman was interviewing about the Kron Gracie Gary Tonin match? He wasn't, bro. They watched it for like an hour and a half, and it was interesting. Come on.
$1 million, brother.
I agree. That's
most exciting, biggest stakes, absolutely.
No doubt.
But yeah, I don't know, just thinking back, like, okay, I've got a group of guys that I've got over that don't have any idea what jiu-jitsu is other than they've seen maybe some UFC where the fight goes to the ground and somebody gets strangled or armbarred or something like that, right? And then they're going to watch those fights. I don't know that they're taking it super serious.
Which one?
The finals of the CJI. I don't know that they're gonna that translated to like the guy that just is gonna drink a couple Coors Lights and watch some jiu-jitsu because it's a fun thing to do because his buddy asked him over to watch it. I don't know.
You don't think that was exciting for like non-jiu-jitsu fans?
The final, he said.
Yeah, the final.
Oh, the final. Yeah, because that was a lot of, Levi's guard. Guard's not really interesting to people that don't play guard.
And it's how the positions played out that becomes, uninteresting to people. It's just like anytime you have the same situations kind of happening over and over and over, and they're never getting much deeper, then it just kind of, even if there was a transition where Levi was kind of playing more top and Cade was on bottom, I think it would just have made the match more interesting. But it's $1 million on the line.
Sure.
Who are you gonna?
I mean, to me, that just is scratching the surface. Is like some of the micro stuff that's happening there. Both of those guys are so skilled. Like, the level is beyond comprehension. But to the guy has no clue, they're not going to know what those things are at all.
But it's back to the point too, though. Like for me, of like a lot of what jiu-jitsu is not letting yourself be vulnerable. And the argument for us is like, oh, well, we're here to watch these guys fight, the gladiators fight. Throw down your shields and just use your swords.
Sure.
And really, if either one guy does that, it doesn't help him in any way. It only gets him killed. You would need both guys to do it for that to happen, right? So meaning there to be a layer of guard that Levi goes, I'm just going to start to let him deeper into my guard because I'm going to try to armbar him, or I'm going to try to attack his upper body a little differently. And Cade being like, I'm going to step deeper into these positions that I know aren't safe anymore and could get me in a leg entanglement that could be way too deep just to make jiu-jitsu happen, right? Just to make a new position happen. And that's kind of what people are saying, oh, they should have done that. It's like, dude, this wasn't about honor, a medal, legacy. This was about $1 million. I get whatever you need to do to win that match. And that was I thought that both guys played it the way that their skill set probably best gave them a chance to win, and how do you get mad about that?
Yeah, absolutely. But you make a great point with that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully they'll be able to do more of those matches in the future and bring it back.
All right, now I got a good kind of hot question for you guys, and I'll give my honest answer on this one too, because I really don't know if I've even fully thought through this one. But if you guys got on CJI, and everybody's going to be on the sauce, would you do a little 16-week cycle? Would you run a little test, a little bit of, I don't know, whatever the kids are doing nowadays? Would you get on the sauce?
I'd go all the way in.
All the way in, Bryce?
To the gills.
I have to consult my medical team on that one.
Okay, medical team. If I'm being totally truthful to you guys and the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu Show listeners, the idea of steroid use really has never even been a real thought in my mind. And I had that thought while watching CJI, and I was just like, yeah, man, everybody's looking pretty good on this. And I'm like, if they didn't ask me to be on this and $1 million was on the line, I think I would probably do it. And I think I would be honest. I would be like, hey guys, there's $1 million on the line. I've told you that I don't want to do steroids because I think it's probably wrong and it's going to hurt you in the long run. But I'm going to run one 16-week cycle for this, to go after this milli. You know, I'll be done after that. I think that my son and my wife will understand this run, you know. Yeah. Is that bad advice? Am I being a bad person? Or
so you guys are at different levels of me. I don't have to go too far to get healthy rounds. I just have to go next door and everybody gives it to me. You guys are at the echelon where you need to go to the top of the mountain and throw down.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Bryce, he had no qualms. Yeah, I'm just saying that I would really, I would think about it, but I will also, right here, right now, let the ISAJJ community know if I did get on
$1 million
for that situation. It's for the money, and I'll tell you guys when I get on. We'll do an interview with somebody who's like, hey, dude, you're doing way too much. I'm like, don't worry, it's a 16-week cycle. I'll be fine.
Hopefully you go to a good doctor that knows what they're doing.
Here's the thing, though. You're going to get on one cycle for $1 million, win the $1 million, theoretically. Win the $1 million, you're feeling great. Sure. You're ending your first cycle feeling physically prime. Are you going to keep the cycle going after that? You're going to be feeling too good to stop.
Bryce, you know who I am as a person, right? You know that in any situation, if somebody handed me a check for $1 million and they just put it in my hand, I'd probably never do jiu-jitsu again, bro. I would probably just retire from everything. I would, buy a small plot of land in Illinois and, grow my own food and just be gone forever. I wouldn't need steroids for that.
I was about to say, I'd probably not see you walk out of your house for at least
ever
2-3 months.
Yeah, ever again. I'm like, dude, we got enough food at home. The Traeger's going. The backup Traeger's going. Traeger. The Blackstone has smash burgers on it. We're doing good, guys.
Sure.
But that's not where we're at right now. We're at, hey, if you got invited to CJI, would you be on the sauce? And I'm just saying, I don't know. If I did, I would tell you.
All right. Appreciate your honesty there, Josh.
But who would you ask? Who would be your guy to get? I don't even know who I would get steroids from. I feel like Bryce would probably be the guy.
I think you just look around town anymore. They have the advertisements around men's clinics.
Going straight to Revive.
I like that. Do you think if I were to go into like 3 or 4 testosterone clinics in the same day while I knew my test was low and I get the test from all 4 dudes, they wouldn't know about each other and they would all recommend me.
Recommend.
Yeah.
It might be slick. Isn't that against the law to go to the pharmacy so many different times like that?
I'm
not sure.
I don't know.
So
I don't go to the doctors, Rob.
Kind of explained it to me. It's deeper than just that. They do blood tests all the time for him. He gets something gets high in his blood and they can't medically regulate it or his body doesn't regulate. So their answer is every couple months he has to donate blood so he can get that out. So
I've heard of that.
They have some. So yeah, it would be something you would not want to pick up from the guy on the corner in Granite City. I think you would want to seek out a professional that knows wellness and maybe studied medicine for a decade.
Okay, Rob, you've talked me out of it. You've talked me out of it.
I don't know if you want to go to Tijuana like Craig Jones did and load up and then come back and fight. I forgot what he talked about that recently. He went to Tijuana, loaded up, and then he crossed back the border, and the next weekend he fought a big tournament.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it was in one of the Eddie Bravo tournaments or something.
Really? Oh man,
He's hilarious too. I think he's a lot of fun.
he is, and I really appreciate his honesty on a lot of things because there's so many things. I've always said this. I would just love to know what these dudes are on. I know I wouldn't even know what the names of anything was, but I would just love to know what they take and why do they take it, and is that why they are so lean, and is that why they can cut water and seem to rehydrate in a way that I can't even get close to. And it's like these, just curious, you know? And, you know, maybe it's just something that would help me sleep at night, knowing like, oh, okay, that's why you beat me. It's just, you were on steroids and I just am not good enough. And so that would always be, you know, I would just always be curious.
Sure.
And I would appreciate him given that, like, yeah, I went to Tijuana and bought steroids.
Yeah. Coming up, there was a guy that somebody told me later that he was on, younger guy too, which is kind of scary that he was doing that at the time. I think he was bodybuilding or whatever. And yeah, there's a difference when you feel that horsepower. You're at the same weight and coming through. But at that time, you know, technique still will prevail if you keep training and keep after it, which is something that people just need to keep in mind, that you just have to keep after it. Like, so I made it to black belt, which is super hard to do. There's a lot of guys that were way, way better than me that either stopped training or never made it. And there's really no reason physically why they couldn't have done it. It's just all about them having the right mindset to get there.
Mm-hmm. I think for so many people, they think that the right mindset to get there is to just go harder, you know, like, oh, well, that's the answer. But the truth is, like, you're doing jiu-jitsu. If you want to do jiu-jitsu for 15 years, if you want to do it for 20 years, it's like, how many phases of life have I gone through while still doing jiu-jitsu? I've been a different person from when I was 14 to 30.
Sure.
You know, I had no responsibilities. I didn't do anything. I was doing jiu-jitsu to lose weight. And then by the time I'm 18, all I do jiu-jitsu for is competition and like traveling and competing and doing it as much as I can. And as I kind of grow up, I get married, I start a school, I do all kinds of other things, and jiu-jitsu becomes different things for me, but it's also because I become a different person. So to assume that the answer for me has always been like, oh, you just aren't training hard enough, you know, you're just not doing enough in jiu-jitsu. Sometimes it's like, man, I'm beat up. I need to train differently. I need to train less.
Sure. And your dad's a great example of that, to kind of like step back, and he's got a real good sense of where he is physically at all times. He, you know, monitors and has great sense of his conditioning, and he knows like when he's ready and when he's not, and when he needs to back out. And to see see him training hard, like just the other day, you guys are out in Vegas. We had a birthday, 36, and guys like, oh, I'm going to do the Steve McKinney. I'm going to go for 1 minute for a birthday, and he was cooked, right? So yeah, your dad's doing that almost double the time every year. So it's crazy.
I've never posted his 62-minute round that we filmed. So or 61-minute round maybe, because I think it might have been a year ago that when he did his role, we did it at Revive. And it was like threes for him with just a new partner coming in, and he never got a rest. And I should post that at some point. I say that about a lot of things.
We gave him a rest because he had some animals on the mat that they didn't deal with. So, and he started from the feet the first round too. He learned quick not to do that.
Oh yeah, that'll kill you, man. That'll kill you. I mean, if I would have been there when he was trying to do 36 minutes in a row, 36 birthday, I guarantee you he wouldn't have been 21 years old this year.
Oh, yeah.
No way.
Would you have gone first round with him, or would you take
I
him like somewhere in the
probably
middle?
would have let him go with somebody that is pretty close to his skill level first couple, to like the guys that know that they can go hard against him. And then when he's got that first bit of fatigue, the cook would have started.
That's when you start the Traeger.
Yeah, the Traeger, the smoker would have started, and it would have been on full blast. Vents opened. It would have been, not good. Not good. So I missed it. I tried to get him to do it again, and he's like, no. It's a one-time thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure 37 next year is not happening. The last minute we gave him Big Eric.
Ooh, that's
Yeah,
fun.
So yeah, he could have been way worse for him. He could have had him for the full 5.
Big Eric, he's so nice. I'm sure he wasn't even really. You need to send out Jeff. You know, we talked bad about Jeff in the beginning of the podcast.
Yeah,
talked
he's a
bad.
mad enforcer.
We talked bad about the TikTok generation in the beginning of the podcast, and I will say they do have a few redeeming qualities. Okay, and one of the big ones is the impulse control on these kids is non-existent. And if you just suggest anything, they'll do it. And I'm like, hey, you have good jiu-jitsu and you're 106 pounds. This 300-pound dude beat up one of the girls. I need you to submit him 100 times. And a lot of people hear that in their head, most people. And they say, oh, Josh needs me to submit this guy a couple times. Jeff literally hears no sarcasm. Josh needs 100 submissions on this guy. You know, this dude's trying to leave and Jeff's still on his back choking him 96, 97, and just over and over. So they have some redeeming qualities.
Sure.
It's like, why do you keep them around? When I need them and I say, hey, this is why, everybody goes, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
sure. So for all the bad examples that Jeff sets, you can also take a step back, which he doesn't even really realize this, but the dedication that he put in coming up early, like he did not take any easy rounds. He's a smaller guy. What would he do? Hey, Hebner, come on over. We're gonna drill, and he would just get flattened by all the toughest, biggest guys in the gym, and he got amazing quick, right? So, yeah,
Dude.
it's what it takes.
I remember one day Hebner hadn't been in 6 months, and Jeff was getting mouthier by the day in those 6 months. And so Hebner's just beating him down as hard as he can. And there's this point that, like, Jeff's still talking trash and escaping stuff a little bit and still talking trash. And I could see it on Eric's face. He was, like, not comprehending what was happening. And he looked up at me. And he, like, just shrugged as if, like, he's just going to be annoying, isn't he? We're never going to be able to fix this, are we? And I'm like, yeah, bro, you're right. And so, yeah, TikTok generation,
maybe
Rob.
you might have to open up his school for him and then ship him out there to run it and see what happens.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what we do with him. They say, some kids make you proud and some kids make you famous. And I think that he's probably going to make me famous. And so I don't know for good reasons or bad, but
Time will tell.
there will be a big spike in audience listens on the podcast because of something that Jeff does that surprises us and everyone else. Hopefully it's positive.
Sure.
Hopefully it's winning something.
Yeah. He hasn't done any favors for the association heads either. He's really made a name for himself.
Oh yeah. Listen. So I've had Head Nod for 9 years, almost 9 years. And the first 7 years of my jiu-jitsu really were spent trying to make a good name for myself in the jiu-jitsu community. As a competitor, I was very respectful. I just always tried to do that. And then I started Head Nod in the heart of Granite City, Illinois. And my team has always been wild since I've started the gym. You look at who my black belts are now. They're just like, they were just the most normal dudes probably, And it's like, holy smokes, these were the most normal guys. And there was actually this point. It was specific. I remember one of our guys was in a match, and he was in a guillotine, and he had like the best guillotine defense literally in the world. No one could guillotine him. And he's in a guillotine, and he had just shot a double. So like the guy is holding on and trying so hard to finish this. This is a tough guy too. And this is a guy that is respected around our area. He has a respected coach. And Justin Kitchler, who's been on the podcast, looked at the guy. He's not coaching. He's just there. I think he's got a seltzer water in his hand. And he looks at the guy and he goes, I'll give you $20 if you can finish that guillotine. Dead in his eyes. And the guy's eyes got wide, and he starts going as hard as he can, and it doesn't get close, and eventually loses the match. And I remember that moment, and I was like, all of this work to try to be respected out the window. This is just, we are what we are. And when I started to accept it, one, it got a lot more fun. But two, I just never got surprised anymore. Sure. You know, never shocked. Hey guys, Josh Mckinney here. Just wanted to interrupt probably the most offensive podcast that we've ever done and tell you guys just a few different things that we have coming in the future. Obviously, we've recently eliminated the intros and the outros of every episode. And so there's a lot of times that I'm not talking to you guys about what we have going on, just teaching specific things or having a conversation like I am currently with Bryce and Rob right now. And so what we have now for the HeadnodHq Jiu-Jitsu Show for the first time ever, and I'm so excited to announce this to you guys, we have a real sponsor. We haven't started the commercials yet, but you guys will hear from a real actual company that is going to be sponsoring the HeadnodHq Jiu-Jitsu Show. And this for me obviously is a really big deal to have real advertisers on our podcast, because up until now, it's always just been me advertising the things that I have for you guys. And all of that has been growing and changing and developing as the podcast has grown and changed and developed. And so we're at this point where we have so many different things that we provide for you guys through the HeadnodHq Jiu-Jitsu Show, and we're just trying to focus in even more. And one of the biggest things that we've talked about, that we've pushed, is the HeadnodHq Jiu-Jitsu Show Pro. And I just wanted to give you guys a few thoughts on the future of that. And this would not offend me if you skipped right back to the interview, but this is more of a longer commercial for faithful HeadnodHq Jiu-Jitsu Show listeners that want to know what we have planned, because it's big stuff. And so one of the first things that we are doing with the HeadnodHq Jiu-Jitsu Show Pro, and I've already put a lot of different seminars that I've taught, but we want that to be a consistent thing, that anytime I teach a seminar, if I can, I will record it and then just give it to the HeadnodHq Jiu-Jitsu Show Pro listeners. And so we just recently did this with a seminar I taught at Watson Martial Arts. Is called The Evolution of the Armbar. And as we have looked at the history of arm bars, they are taught differently, or they should be taught differently now, just like every other technique has kind of evolved and the language has evolved. But for whatever reason, the closed guard armbar and the mounted armbar are still the same exact things that you would learn on day one 20 years ago. And to be fair, that closed guard armbar and that armbar from top, they really don't work. And so what I've switched my focus to as a coach recently is this idea of arm bars, arm locks, and how you can finish them better, how you can catch them more, and how, most importantly, you can control your opponent with them. Well, this turned into a seminar that I'm going to start teaching. And what's interesting about when you do a seminar in the jiu-jitsu space, and what seems to be so much different than an instructional that's polished. I literally record my instructionals in this beautiful studio right behind me, and still there's something missing. And there's this human element that comes into learning jiu-jitsu, that if I say a really well thought out statement, this perfect paragraph, and everything about it is perfect, and you understand all of it, there is still the problem that you and I don't speak exactly the same language. There are going to be missing things from what I tried to explain to you to what you actually understood. And that being said, the ability to do question and answer in real time, the ability to say, hey, does everybody understand? And then somebody raises their hand and they say, no, what did you mean by this? And a lot of people get value out of that, not just that individual. And it's because it offers, it lets me know where my perspective is kind of failing. And so with the instructionals, and this is why we're putting out seminars of the evolution of the armbar over instructionals, is because the interaction is just so much better. It just makes it so much easier for people to understand, and it seems to produce better techniques because you're trying to explain it to people. But that being said, and this is a really long way to say this, the next thing to be paying attention to is the live seminars that we are going to be doing absolutely free, not just to I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu Show Pro listeners or subscribers, but to anyone who's on our YouTube, on our Instagram, or on our Facebook pages. You will see these ideally 90-minute live seminars. The first one we're going to do is going to be on kind of defensive tactics and turtle guards specifically, and it's going to be with me and my dad, Steve McKinney. And so we don't have a date for it. We don't have the exact formula of how it's going to happen, but that is going to be probably within the next 6 weeks. We're going to be sending out some announcements and doing this free seminar, and this free seminar will only work, again, it's only relevant if you guys participate, if you guys ask questions, if you guys tell us more about what you want to see. And so all that being said, if you, of course, I'll make sure to announce it on the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu Show, but if you want to know first before anybody else, be sure to subscribe to the Ghee Gazette. There's a link in the description on how to do that. And so all that being said, a really long commercial where I really didn't have any great call to actions, except, hey, we're giving away something free soon. Be sure to pay attention. Let's go ahead and get back to today's episode.
Sometimes you leave stuff out too. Like I'll go visit other schools, and some of my friends coming up now have their own schools, and I'll go visit, or traveling for work, and I'll go there and, hey Josh, I'm gonna go here. And then I'll go there, and then I'll come back and be like, hey Josh, I had a good time. Everybody was really nice to me. You're so friendly. Hey, you forgot to tell me that, somebody had this match where there was some bad blood or something that. Oh, now I know why they sent out the biggest guy to destroy me.
Listen, sometimes you do pay for the sins of head nod when you go to a different gym and they're like, hey, do you know this guy? And you're like, yeah, he's one of my best friends. And then they're like, I hate that guy. I hate him and his whole team. I'm like, well, that's me.
Sure.
That's my team. And we all have some responsibility in it, right?
Sure.
I think we started this podcast saying some really offensive stuff about Brazilian people out of nowhere. We didn't even talk to anything else on the podcast about it. Just like we just started making Brazilian barbecue jokes.
That's right.
That's rough.
Do you have to go to Brazil anymore to learn jiu-jitsu? I don't think people really need to go there anymore. No. Like the Meccas, the USA. It was San Diego. Now it might be St. Charles County. I don't know. It's tough out there.
There are a lot of good guys that train at, there's so many good schools in America. There's no way that you need to go to Brazil to be good at jiu-jitsu. I don't think it would probably hurt you. I don't think you would not have a good experience or whatever. But I think people are surprised when they go. And it's just from what people I've heard. I've never been. But I think they expect it to be super high-level jiu-jitsu at every gym, right? And so every place around the corner, it's Brazil. They're going to have the best jiu-jitsu. But it's just like America. You have a lot of guys that suck that go and start their own schools and produce guys that suck, right? Or just people that are new and they have a new school and it's hard to get guys good when you don't have a lot of training partners. There's all kinds of reasons, but the same stuff that happens around America where you're like, none of these schools really, really seem tough, really, really seem like everywhere, every round I'm going with these people are tough, and everybody has good jiu-jitsu. Just like that can be pretty few and far in between in America. It can also be pretty few and far in between in Brazil, because the difference is in Brazil, what happens when you're really good is you usually get put brought to one of the bigger affiliations in, you know what I mean? And that doesn't happen as much in America, right? Like I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does with some of the biggest affiliations, but like most of the time, if you have a really good kid, people will more send stuff to you in America versus like, okay, we're going to take that kid and we'll take over from here. And you just see that still happening in Brazil, and people are funded to do that. And so, you know, if anything, the random school versus the random school, the America Jiu-Jitsu might be better now. That's just my opinion. I just like going off what I've heard from people I've trained with a lot that have trained there a lot. And so who knows? You know, could be wrong.
Headnod loves to get in there with all the different schools. We go to a big team day, and everybody's got so much to say afterwards. That next Monday after the training, like, who's tough, who's not, how we're
that's
repping the flag and everything.
That's always the tournament is like, oh, you go and, you know, man, this guy won, but he fought this guy. That guy sucks. You know, and that's always the conversation in jiu-jitsu is like, oh yeah, this guy's terrible. You can never be, no one has ever said, oh, that guy's all right in jiu-jitsu, right? It's like, oh no, he's terrible. Oh, he's amazing, dude. He beat me down. He's amazing. He's the worst guy ever. He's terrible. He should never train again.
Yeah, the more you train, the better you get at trash talk. I think that's pretty important. Have a good sense of humor and be able to really dish it out. Headnod's pretty good at doing that. After the trainings, Josh usually gets a pretty healthy, like why he's overweight, not winning the championships, doesn't work, doesn't drill.
There's not a lot of punches.
They go on.
Yeah. I agree. It's a pretty rough environment, man. Yeah. It's pretty, like I said, it's pretty harsh on the ears, you know? Sure. You'll hear things that you shouldn't be hearing, you know, at Headnod. You know, people will say things like, these are your friends?
Yeah.
This
is usually weird. Starts out with something pretty sincere, like, you know, Jeff, I think you should do the absolutes. I think you could win. And then, of course, it just goes downhill from there for something.
Well, you think that because you're fat, Josh. And then somebody else chimes in like, yeah, you are fat, Josh. I saw you on Instagram eating a donut the other day. And then, you know, it's just
you'll never get away from the 14-year-old Josh that started jiu-jitsu because his mom sent him down to get in shape.
That's true.
Always going to be your life.
That's always going to be my toughest battle is battling 14-year-old Josh's McDonald's addiction. You know,
your mom should come on the podcast and talk about like the evolution of the Josh McKinney jiu-jitsu. That would be probably a fun episode.
I don't know.
Hey, did you think what would happen to Josh as he started? You dropped him off at a center for murderers, bringing in the toughest MMA fighters in the country, and then we're gonna throw in a 14-year-old to fight with.
So here's why I'm not gonna do that, Rob. Is people think, you know, like I don't use it as much on the podcast because it comes off mean, but at the gym in that environment, we like to roast each other, and I have this skill for roasting people, you know, and it's like it's almost like 7th grader level roast. You know how a 7th grader can just roast you about things that deeply hurt you, and like how did they know that was the one thing that I actually am self-conscious about? You know, and I'm pretty good at that, and people assume that comes from my dad. But it actually comes from my mom. Ooh. And if my mom were to come on this podcast, she would roast me to death. Right now, I'm wearing a black t-shirt and black pants. And honestly, honest to God, I have stress when I do that because when it would happen at my house at 6, 7 years old, I would walk out of my room wearing a green shirt and green pants. And my mom would be like, hey, are you going to auditions for the Green Power Ranger later today? And, you know, that's brutal to say that because it was my favorite thing, Power Rangers.
Sure.
And it was how I was dressed. It was this double layer roast. No way. Okay. No way that my mom's going on the podcast.
Maybe Bryce and I will interview your mom sometime.
Yeah, that would.
When you're on vacation, we'll set up a special interview.
She'll roast you guys too.
Was the Green Power Ranger the Asian one?
I mean, I think at the time it was the girl was the yellow Power Ranger. Okay. The Green Power Ranger would have been Tommy Oliver, which was Jason David Frank, who died recently, but did jiu-jitsu. He fought MMA a little bit, But yeah, super sad. We're working on the newest movie. Were you guys Power Rangers guys at all?
As, I
Not
was a little
very.
older for that.
Yeah, way to bring that up, Bryce. Yeah, literally my childhood hero, the Green Ranger, died. I don't want to misspeak, but I'm not even gonna say it. But yeah, died recently, and super sad, man. They're doing like some type. He's been on the shows and stuff over the years. He's been like one of the few people that's come back and still done stuff. He did. You guys, Power Rangers Dino Thunder, yeah.
I've seen that stuff when I was younger, but I was never like super into Power Rangers.
So Dino Thunder, they have a professor at the new Power Rangers have a professor. And I'm like, dude, that's the Green Power Ranger. I don't know how old I am, but I was sure of it. Like, that was the Green Power Ranger. This is years later. But then it actually was the Green Power Ranger. Big moments in my life, guys. Big moments in my life. All right, let's finish with something jiu-jitsu. This podcast never was on the rails, but let's finish with something jiu-jitsu. Bryce, did you have any more hot take to go off of?
Not really, man.
Okay.
That was the one big one.
I thought that was your main one. So then we'll finish with this. So for you, because we've only talked trash this entire episode, let's try to give something very helpful at the end. A lot of people have reached out to even me, and I know that a lot of people have reached out to you about coming back to doing jiu-jitsu with a hip replacement, or for you with a double hip replacement. I just kind of wanted where you're at now, and then if somebody is, because from it's usually people that are facing the surgery that are most worried, right? How is the recovery going to be? And one, make sure you give a way to contact you too, but just any general advice for somebody that is finding this out, that they're going to have a hip replacement and they're hoping that they can still do jiu-jitsu.
Sure. So yeah, it's been about 2 years since my second surgery. Doing great. I'm improving all the time. I hold myself, you probably wouldn't know this, Josh, because you don't go to a review at the end of the year. But when your boss puts you up at the high pedestal and they're going to give you something and you're like, that's never going to be attainable. That's how I talk to my doctors, and they don't necessarily get along with me like the greatest when I'm like, yeah, no, I want to be back to this and doing this. And they kind of look at me funny like, hey, you're doing all right now. But like for all intents and purposes, people would never know that I ever had anything wrong with me. Maybe they're like, I wonder why he doesn't, sit down in a full butterfly stretch or something like that. Maybe, but yeah, whatever there. So yeah, doing quite a bit better. And then actually I've had several opportunities to reach out, share my story. I was on another podcast. And then through that, several people have reached out to me. A couple of your listeners facing the surgery reached out. People find me from the podcast. My Instagram is bionic_BJJ. And then just last night, it's kind of wild. So we were at our parish picnic. There's a little festival they have every year, and one of the guys there I know, his daughter's quite a bit younger than mine. He's a police officer, and he trains jiu-jitsu one of the other gyms. So I just kind of kibitz with him a little bit, and like, hey, how you doing? You training, whatever. So he's a police officer. He gets into a fight at work, breaks his femur.
Oh,
yeah, and he's tough, strong dude. So and works out all the time. So he's toughing it out, limping for like a month. Finally goes to the doctor. They're like, yeah, it's pretty bad. We're going to have to, there's no choice for us, but we're going to have to replace your hip. And then he gets into another altercation. I'm going to use the word altercation because I think fight's a little rough for a police officer. But anyways, so now he's been out of work for like a month. He's looking to get surgery, but he's got to go through like the whole hassle of workman's comp and stuff like that. But yeah, he was just like, he's younger than me. I'm probably going to say he's like in his late 30s, early 40s at the latest. And, just freaking out because he's a purple belt. And he's just like, he trains at a very high intensity. I've trained with him before. Bigger guy too. So he is ultra nervous. And then just to be able to tell him like, things are going to be fine. Things are going to change. Absolutely. It's going to be different for you. And the same thing that I talked to the other guys around the world, actually. One of the guys, a good friend of mine, is in Ireland, reached out. I'm going to say he's probably close to 2 years for his surgery too. Yeah. just got his 4th stripe on his purple belt, really coming in after getting that brown belt and just, grinding every day and just working to get back to it. So just that mindset that's going to separate, the black belt from everybody else is getting back after it. So it's cool. Well, it sucks that it's been happening to so many people and I'm finding out about it, but it feels great to be able to share to people like, hey, it's not the end, which I thought it was going to be the end. And, and now coming out and you kind of, I don't know, it's finding me, but I've found out like even some top names in the sport, like Rickson Gracie, he wrote about it in his book that he had to have a hip replaced. And, he's the greatest jiu-jitsu fighter of all time. I'm sure Bryce probably has a comment against that.
Of course he does. Bryce, were you born before? Did you remember 9/11?
Very briefly.
Have you ever seen Rickson Gracie versus Zulu?
Yeah, he doesn't remember.
He didn't watch that fight. Yeah, anyways, to see, and then others struggling with just any injury, just to have that mindset. If you're going to get back, it's not going to be the same, but it doesn't have to be too different from what it was, that you can do it.
I agree. And I just think accepting that things are going to change too. Jiu-jitsu is not always going to be what it is right now for anybody if you keep training for a long enough time. It's just how life works.
Sure.
Your marriage is not going to be what it was when it started. It's going to be different. You're going to change. Your wife's going to change. And then, you are ideally going to change together, and like with jiu-jitsu, things are going to change in it. The way you get to do it, the way, even what you get to do in jiu-jitsu, more of your time now is spent teaching. And that, even though that's fun and it's awesome to give back, but it's not training. It's not drilling. It's not getting reps. It's not the other things, not positional sparring. It's not the things that you used to do during that time, but accepting that those things change. And that's like part of the process of life is so important. And
that brings in an area that I would have never thought about because I wasn't teaching, but having guys coming up now, I'm so excited for them to get to the next level. And like I'm more excited for them getting their next belt than I was for getting it. And like I'm done. There's probably no more belts for me unless I live a long time and Josh starts putting stripes on. But anyways, seeing them get to that next level and improving is just bringing a whole nother dimension on. I'm sure it's the same thing for you, like having your first world champion last year. It's probably bring joy that you never would have thought about as, the 18-year-old tough competitor getting after it yourself, that one day you'd have a world champion under your gym, that you taught everything he knows for the most part. I might have had a little bit of something to do with showing him some stuff, but I didn't very little.
I guess I really hadn't even thought about
never
that
thought about it?
very much until you
should
said it.
Be proud of yourself, but, Josh. You got some tough guys doing some amazing stuff.
I feel like a lot of it is, I ask everybody that I knew, every dad that I knew before I had a baby, like, hey, what was something that was surprising to you about fatherhood? Something you just didn't expect, something positive, and if there's something negative, something negative. And people gave me all kinds of answers. And I remember I asked Chris Paines this when he was in town, and he was like, let me think. He goes, seeing them experiencing something for the first time is almost as fun as when you got to experience it for the first time. And he's like, when my kids started swimming and feeling how much they loved swimming, he's like, I loved swimming more. He's like, it was just so much fun getting to see that. And I think with jiu-jitsu, obviously they're not your kids, They're a lot of people that train under me that are older than me. But it's just like getting to see people through whatever phase of life they're in, keep coming in, keep doing jiu-jitsu, and get to the next level and the next level and be legitimate and be like, hey, this guy isn't a jiu-jitsu athlete. This guy isn't this. This guy is he works on airplanes. This guy is a dentist. This guy does this. This guy does this. But eventually seeing them all still have dedicated that time and also be a black belt is like, for me, the hope, but also like getting to see it with certain guys of us already, getting to see Robert go from white to black belt and be a legitimate black belt and, submit his first guy he competed against at black belt, right? Be a legitimate black belt. And getting to see that was such a special thing for me because it's like coaches will be like, oh yeah, I don't play favorites. You shouldn't play favorites. But to me, favoritism should be given to the most consistent people. Right? You should, if they have shown you that they're going to make you a favorite in their day, and they're going to be there consistently, they deserve your time more than anybody else, And it's like the guy that just chooses to be in and out. Yes, they deserve your time. It's just if you have a certain amount of time to give, you're always, for me, I'm always looking for who is just here, who's always here, who is a staple of the gym. We were talking before about our favorite rolling partners, and you said, well, of course, Ron. And we're all like, yeah, of course, because he's in every single training session, has been for years. Most consistent dude, just always in, always there, always helpful, always getting better. Oh, and it's like, yeah, of course I'm gonna give him special attention anytime he needs it,
And he's starting to think about jiu-jitsu in a different lens now too. I'm not sure if it's just kind of coming up underneath the more conceptual curriculum now, but he's starting to see like how stuff is working and how it's going to work in his mind and where he's going with stuff. Like he just taught a seminar recently at the gym on back take stuff that he's been working on for the last year. And it was super cool to go learn from him because he's put in a lot of time, studied it, and has put it to use, winning championships already. So it's really cool to see that.
And it really is. And just for us, it's fun to have you on the team. It's fun to get to see, get to coach all these guys and hopefully see them do a lot of good stuff in jiu-jitsu and stop annoying me so much.
Absolutely.
Rob, thank you so much for being on the show, buddy. Anything you have to say to finish?
Oh, thanks for having me out. Hopefully I'll come back again. It's a lot of fun.
You're always welcome. I didn't even mention that you brought us iced coffee again.
Oh yeah, I got to keep you guys hydrated.
As long as you're bringing the sugar and fat to start our morning, you're always welcome.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you for being on the show, buddy.